going to be widely targeted. People are anticipating a lot of aggro mage here at this tournament. And while people are saying Quest Rogue is the best deck in Hearthstone at the moment, and I would tend to agree with them, it's still gone through 2 nerfs to get to this stage. It's not like the stage of original Quest Rogue, or when Combo Druid was at its height, or Aggro Shaman was at its height. Compared to a lot of decks in Hearthstone history, it's not that dominant compared to a lot of them, I would say.
Well, not at the latest second nerf version. I mean, imagine if it was still how it originally was. It doesn't matter what material the jacket is. So let's head into game 1. PNC has queued up that Evenlock, and BloodTrail, on the other hand, has got the Death Rattle Hunter. Let's hear a little bit about the matchups and who you think should be favored and why.
So I feel like pretty generally it's accepted that the Death Rattle Hunter should be in the lead in this matchup. You have a whole bunch of tools to be dealing with an early Mountain Giant, should that be PNC's opening gambit, as he will definitely be hoping to do. And in the mid stages of the game, the size of your minions, the shapes of your minions as Death Rattle Hunter are just awkward for the even Warlock to deal with. 5/5s, they don't die to Hellfire, they rarely die to Defile. If they do Hellfire, it ends up popping your eggs. And when you get Keleseth, Egg, and Terrascale Stalker, it feels like there is little that PNC can do in this, in the early game at least, to stem this onslaught that BloodTrail will be throwing down.
Yeah, the way I like to think about it is, what's Hunter's removal good against? It's like big single target minions.
Yeah.
What does Evenlock play? Big single target minions.
Yeah.
What is Evenlock's AoE good against? Small boards, 3 health and less.
Yeah.
Not really Death Rattle unless the Defile can get a lot going. What does the Hunter play? Lots of Death Rattle, lots of awkward-sized minions. So when you just think about the matchup like that, it really does seem to be quite favored to that Death Rattle Hunter.
Especially when they get off to such an aggressive start like this one.
Now, the one tech card for PNC that is really useful is one that we see in hand, which is that Skulking Geist, because it can remove a lot of the shenanigans around Hunter's Marks, play deads, that enable that single target removal to be so effective.
And I think the prevalence of Death Rattle Hunter is one of the main reasons why Skulking Geist has become so core now in even Warlock. You just, the fact that you can deal with Hunter's Marks and the play deads against Druids, you have Naturalize and Spellstones. There's just Soulfire against Zoo. There's a whole bunch of really powerful one-cost spells at the moment.
So PNC hits the Mountain Giant, which he must be pleased about, but he's going to get the unfortunate news that there is an answer in BloodTrail's hand.
Plenty of answers.
There's so many answers.
Oof, even with the Candlestick being picked up as well.
There's like 4 different ways of that hand.
BloodTrail does need to be thinking about how he wants to use these Death Rattle activators now that the egg has obviously been silenced away. Does he want to go for Spider Bomb play dead on the next turn? We're probably expecting to see... Oh, actually maybe we don't see a Skulking Geist.
Spider Bomb makes a lot of sense, because if you play Spider Bomb, you're very weak to Defile, and then a 4-drop follow-up, which is Evenlock's bread and butter. And if it does get killed for any reason, you then have nothing to activate your play dead and Terrascale Stalker with, so...
So the question of not having good Death Rattles to activate somewhat goes away now with the other egg being picked up as well. You just have your pick of the litter. You can go for Spider Bomb if you need to kill stuff off, and if they don't develop, you just Death Rattle the Devilsaur Egg.
So PNC here, a little bit to think through. So this is where the turns start getting really awkward, because ideally you would be playing something like Skulking Geist now to get rid of the rest of the things that can clear up your big minions. But you're looking at that little Spider Bomb, the Spider Bomb that can, or could. How do they say it? The Spider Bomb that will?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just going to clean up that Skulking Geist like there's no tomorrow. So has to then weigh up, is there something else that's better for him to be doing? And the unfortunate thing is not really.
Yeah, it's Spellstone on the Spider Bomb feels truly miserable.
You can't even follow it up with anything that's exciting.
Yeah.
I mean, the Acidic Swamp Ooze could come down as a follow-up. It challenges the minion on board. It gets rid of the weapon. But you're just giving BloodTrail so much opportunity to then push the pace.
Yeah, he's realizing any minion he develops into this here will just end up losing him the game. He has to just pray that BloodTrail's hand is full of a whole lot of nothing. I think we can clearly see, though, while this may be a relatively slow turn, it starts to pick up pretty majorly on the next turn with King Crush.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Okay, so BloodTrail making the trade there for PNC rather than pushing him down lower on life. When your opponent's on that high of a total, do you really need to?
Yeah, I think I was favouring the aggressive line there. I was even considering Ziliax on that turn, to be honest. It's a bit more mana efficient. I suppose this develops a nice big board leading into a King Crush turn. But the thing is, if you're going for a big burst with King Crush on the next turn to face, which it very likely will be, you want to get them to as close to 15 as possible, whilst not getting them down to that 15 health point. Because once you do go for King Crush, you want to kill them next turn every time.
Another Spider-Man pick up, and with the Ziliax in hand, that's such a strong combo.
Yeah, PNC knows what's coming here, and he does not look happy about it. PNC, somewhat interestingly, was telling me about the benefit of giving false leads to your opponent with your facial cues that you're giving. Yeah, putting them off the mark. But I think there, for PNC, when your opponent plays King Crush, that's probably about the right face to be making.
It's interesting because I think a lot of players aren't sophisticated enough in the face reading capability to actually get a large advantage of that.
That's fair.
Like it's an interesting skill that it would be great to see someone being very good at actually face reading opponents, like poker players do, for example, to get a read on or a tell. I just don't think it's something that Hearthstone players practice because you don't require it often enough to be a skill that you want to develop. Like it's not useful online. It's not useful in online tournaments. It is useful face-to-face, but how often do you get to practice that? Like, PNC's not only thought about that, but he's like, oh, I'm going to practice like
giving the wrong keys.
Yeah, exactly. It's very interesting.
I prefer the Pavel approach, personally, that he was going for at the Taipei All-Star Major, where he queues up the game, starts playing, first turn just starts laughing. Just starts laughing at his opponents straight away. It has a 100% success rate in throwing them off, let me tell you.
Alright, so PNC sitting on 8 mana. The rope is now burning. He's got those Hooked Reavers active if he wants to use them, but the Bone Mare's going to be coming down on that Beetle. And get a nice little trade in here. That turn's looking very good for PNC. From his perspective anyway. I mean, BloodTrail has the answers, but...
Yeah. It's looking about as good as it could get here. As you know, no Spider Bomb activation quite yet, even if he went for the magnetizing effect with Ziliax. He obviously has the Divine Shield in place, so he can't make the Death Rattle go off.
Alright, so he's going to merge them anyway. That 7-6 is going to charge straight in.
This just is such a difficultly shaped board.
Yeah, because, like, I mean, Defile Hellfire gets a lot of work done here, but it's... You're putting yourself down to 4, and you're popping the egg. So that doesn't really work.
I agree, which means that the response has to be, if you go trade in and then
you can't create a 3.
Defile.
If you create a 3, you can get full clear with double Defile, I think, or even just 1 Defile.
Yeah, I think you have to go like trade Defile, Hooked Reaver, Twilight Drake, or I guess Twilight Drake first.
Wait, can't you trade Ooze Defile, and that kills off the Crush and the Spider Bomb? You get left with the 5/5 though.
And then you're just dead.
No, you can heal up, or you can play Vulgar Homunculus. Or you'd even have enough mana for the Hooked Reaver still.
I think I prefer setting up the Hooked Reaver on this turn.
Yeah, okay.
Because you can get down to Twilight Drake as well and start actually fighting back on this board. Or a Vulgar Homunculus as well if you want to start, you know, really solidifying this board back in your favor.
Ooh, that is not a good draw for BloodTrail.
Yeah, starting to finally turn around, it feels like, for PNC, possibly.
PNC could very well stabilize
on this turn.
Yeah, okay.
Because you can get down to Twilight Drake as well and start actually fighting back on this board. Or a Vulgar Homunculus as well if you want to start, you know, really solidifying this board.
Is just enough. I didn't think PNC would have so little to respond here.
It's just a pretty miserable hand.
Do you have to tap?
If he goes for a tap, what can he even get? It would have to be Spellstone, which he could then go trade Hellfire Spellstone.
What else is good? I mean... He has like a second plated beetle. I think he has a Sunfury Protector still to play as well.
Yeah.
If you tap, you can also hit, the Spellbreaker. You said Spellbreaker, right? Yeah.
I think it has to be a tap on this turn. I just don't think anything else protects you enough against this.
Must destroy.
He's giving it a good think, though.
Oh, this is actually kind of interesting, too.
Decides in the end, he's going to go for the Sacrificial Pact on his own Vulgar Homunculus. This is one of the most miserable plays I've seen in Hearthstone for a long while. But he's saying, I get to dominate the board with my minions on this turn. Hopefully, by value trading for the next couple of turns, I can pull this one back.
Well, it is really interesting because you basically let PNC have one tap or to hit heal. And if it misses, then you've got the win. And he has seen a fair bit from PNC come out already. Obviously, the Sacrificial Pact, he's seen one of the Spellstones already come out.
Yeah.
So there's just one Spellstone and Blood River Gul'dan left. There is, of course, the second plated beetle, but you'd actually need a way to pop it, which isn't there. And so now for BloodTrail, a really tricky decision with the cube. Do you just pop the egg and get that 5/5 now, or do you do the greedy play and go for the Grizzly? And he's recognized that he's not going to have enough turns to win if PNC can stabilize, has to put the pressure on now. And that's a good draw for PNC is in the sense that it's heal, but he can't actually pump it up with the cards that he has.
Yeah, if he goes for trade Hellfire and then...
Can't trade Hellfire, you have to Spellstone.
Oh, of course,
have
yeah.
to Spellstone. And I actually just think, because you have to clear the full board and Healthstone and Spellstone. These are your conditions. So it can be done. You just Spellstone any of them. Oh wait, can it be done?
I don't see
No, it can be. You Spellstone the Grizzly and Hellfire, your Ooze dies, but then you just trade in with your 4/4 and 4/8 to kill the other two minions on board. You're left on 3, they're left with 2 eggs, you're on 3 health, and you have 1 turn to draw Blood River Gul'dan.
You trade in your Ooze, right, and then you'd Spellstone the 5.
Oh, you leave slightly more health in the minion up.
Yeah,
That's right.
I mean,
Sorry, it's focusing on the clear rather than the best way to clear.
Everything
you can
dies,
do it.
right, on your board, I think, no matter what you do.
Ooh. So that seems like a misplay, right? Because you could have left one alive to your point. So the Spellstone should have gone into the 5/5 rather than into the cube.
I think all his stuff dies anyway, no matter what.
No, because so he had the cube, right?
Yeah.
Took a Spellstone, a Hellfire, and a minion, but it was on 7 health. So if you just do Hellfire and a 4 attacking, it kills it.
You are, okay.
So you could have had the Drake survive on a few health, I believe. And so this is going to come down to PNC's last draw. He's got a 1 in 9 chance of hitting that Blood River Gul'dan. And it's unfortunately not going to be it.
That's nothing for PNC. Throws down the tap for an honorable self-defeat here, and PNC is going to be going down 1 game. That Death Rattle Hunter that he chose not to ban, taking up one of the easiest victories we've seen here.
You say one of the easiest victories, but PNC was very close to stabilizing and bringing that back.
See that you have to account for when playing Shadowwalk. The Even Warlock can just not draw its big threats early on. So like you said, having that safety net of having 1 game safely stored away is a great way to get things going.
So it looks like we've just missed the mulligan of this game, and BloodTrail is on his 3rd turn here, tapping and then playing out the Vulgar Homunculus. We can see that none of those big minions in hand that he's looking for to play aggressively are currently there yet. PNC, on the other hand, has queued up that Druid, and it looks like he's missed all ramp so far, but with the Twig in hand, that's one of those things that can win the game as long as you don't run into Ooze.
Even then, though, if you expect there to be an Ooze in your starting hand, which I think PNC possibly will be, you'd probably keep it off the mulligan. Again, we couldn't see the mulligan, so we don't know if any cards were kept. I doubt it, given the look of his hand. But if you do expect there to be Ooze, you want to get it down as quick as possible, because then they have to break your Twig going into your turn 7, which just gives you 3 mana. You just go up to turn 10, you can play the Wild Growth straight away.
If you don't hit any other ramp.
Yes, good point.
And often, if you don't hit any other ramp and the Twig on 7 is your ramp, then you're pretty far behind.
Fair point.
So PNC has a really awkward turn now. The swipe obviously can deal with the Vulgar Homunculus, but just doesn't feel very good as a turn. The branching paths could be played out here looking for additional cards, but it's a bit tricky to see exactly what he'd be looking for in this situation.
Yeah, like going for draw in this position when you have Nourish and you have UI and a Lich King, you don't really want to be drawing with branching paths, to be honest. It's going to clutter up your hand.
Yeah. That looks like exactly what PNC is going to do. Double armor here.
I like this a lot.
Looks at his hand, sees that he's got a lot of ramp draw still available. I mean, the UI is more than enough in a lot of these matchups. Ooh, now that is a card that has fallen out of favor, but we can see in BloodTrail's hand the Demonic Project. Is that right?
Yeah. Like when I've asked players about this, their response is usually, why would I want to play Demonic Project in my aggro deck, which is generally how players try to approach even lock in a lot of matchups, I think. And although it's obviously a little bit of a joke, it's a fair point. In a lot of matchups, you have to play very aggressive Twilight Drake or Giant on turns 3 or 4. And Demonic Project to do basically nothing in terms of tempo, it's just too weak in a lot of the matchups. But BloodTrail here clearly anticipating, I would imagine, this exact matchup as just one of the best matchups to play Demonic Project. This could be game-winning.
It's the matchup.
It's the
You
matchup.
hit Malygos and it's all over.
Pretty much.
So very interesting tech, and it makes it even more obvious to me why BloodTrail left the Druid up.
Good point.
Because the Demonic Project hard counters this.
Shields up.
I believe if we were to go to the mirror, though, then things swing back in PNC's favor with the Sacrificial Pact that he has in his deck. Or do they
I
both
think they
have
both
one?
have it,
Oh, right.
but the Demonic Project might be useful in that matchup.
In the mirror?
Not really. I'm trying to think, like, is it...
Oh, Demonic Project. No. I think it's more
like,
the Sac Pact that you're looking at.
Yeah, no, I'm just trying to think, like, is it useful in the mirror at any point? It's like, if you're holding onto a Doomsayer only, then at least
Yeah,
like
if you're
a
going
random
into turn 8, you can get rid of a
better than
Lich King or
Doomsayer,
something.
like, yeah.
Not really the matchup you're looking for, though, as PNC will get a little bit of a boost in terms of mana, bumping them up just one mana crystal. But at the very least, it forces BloodTrail to play out the Ooze, which is not bad. You know, it stops him from playing maybe on that turn one of his 6 drops, although we can see he does not actually have any of those in hand. PNC might be counting this as a small victory.
And for PNC, while it is just 1 mana crystal, getting that ultimate infestation online a turn earlier is huge, but he may even consider holding off on that, just given that had the breadth of the board and Spreading Plague in hand. Because Spreading Plague with the Arcane Tyrant, and could consider swipe, although it's probably not the best here. It's alright.
Yeah, you kind of want to be saving swipe, because at the moment you can actually start looking towards lethal quite soon, I think, as PNC. As soon as you find Malygos, potentially even before you find Malygos, because there's now, 15, 20 burst damage in hand. Oh no, sorry, 15 burst damage that you can go for just in hand. Which is obviously unlikely to get there, given how much heal even Warlock has. But it's something to consider. You can move towards lethal pretty quickly. Yeah.
Oh, 15 over 2 turns?
Over 2 turns, yeah, with the UI 2 and swipe and Death Coil.
So what is PNC seriously weighing up Spreading Plague versus UI?
Time waits for no one.
Because if you go for Plague on this turn, obviously UI becomes a lot better. You're not burning any cards. You can even get out a pretty good board clear on this turn and try and get some chip damage through to face. I guess because the fact that he has so much burst in hand already, he's a little bit more willing to throw down the swipe for when he does find that Malygos.
I guess the other thing is, PNC's only on 14 life himself.
Yeah.
Like, BloodTrail has done a very good job at chipping away at that
That's
life
true.
total aggressively this game. And maybe just feeling in that position that, yes, the UI takes you back up to 19, but given you'd be leaving 8 damage on the board, that's still an awkward position.
A somewhat interesting decision as well from PNC in playing out the Arcane Tyrant at all, because he knows that there is a Demonic Project in his opponent's deck, not necessarily in hand. So having that Arcane Tyrant back in hand as a kind of umbrella to protect your Malygos and your Alexstrasza against the transform effect can be a very useful mechanism in this matchup.
I wonder if that was a conscious decision that was made, like with Demonic Project in mind, or just one of those auto plays.
I think
like it's just such a good play.
Like
just such a good play. Normally you go Spreading Plague, and then of course I play my Tyrant because this board's awesome.
I think it was
and
probably right,
Yeah. Well, the other thing is, as you're talking about, you do want to dump cards from your hand so you get max amount of UI. So now there is a choice, though, for PNC as to whether or not this goes face rather than to the minions. And I wouldn't mind seeing it go face, but once again, he's on 10 life, and he just may be feeling that pressure.
Yeah, I wouldn't hate going face, because if they do have a Spellstone, it kind of forces them to play it out. Because they would be down to, what, 10 health, they're in the range of Malagos Double Moonfire. This is more likely to get a little bit of damage through to face, so maybe they have to make an even more defensive line of play, which clearly BloodTrail is not going to be wanting to do.
All right, so Spellstone there popping out, and while there was a lot of other choices there for BloodTrail, he's showing PNC that the Blood Reaver Gul'dan is coming down on 10.
Yeah, lightning fast play here from BloodTrail. I don't know, I might like to have seen slightly more time given consideration to his hand here, because he's got a lot of options. Like UI has just been played, maybe this is the time to go Demonic Project. Maybe you wait a couple of turns for him to thin out cards from his hand. It's not necessarily the easiest of turns then, it was played at lightning speed from BloodTrail.
It's very interesting, because I mean, there was the Mountain Giant could have come down as well, but you'd be very worried about Naturalize, I guess, combined with some other good stuff in the turn, maybe. And from his perspective, he doesn't actually probably need the Mountain Giant to go face anymore. Just getting Blood Reaver Gul'dan now, and then trying to get himself out of Malagos range is the most important thing to him, which is why we saw this line. I just think the problem with the quick speed is that it signals to PNC what's in hand.
Good point.
It's a very strong tell on what's in hand.
Yeah, very good point. As PNC looked here like he was showing he wanted to go for some kind of an aggressive board route, or at the very least, he had to dump a card from his hand here. It seems that he just chose he wanted to get rid of Spreading Plague full stop here. Ooh, and I'm not sure if I agree with that. I think Spreading Plague could be a pretty good response to Blood Reaver Gul'dan.
I wouldn't be surprised if we just see PNC concede on the back of this.
Yeah, I don't know if PNC likes his play himself there.
I mean, is the Plague really that useful? Maybe. So
I mean, it's more useful than like a Spellstone, surely, or something else.
I guess.
Even a Starfall. Like, what does Starfall do in this matchup? Kill off again.
I mean, there is still some potential for like Floop and
It's true.
Starfire at some point, but you're right.
It's expensive.
You can see he's just in the mindset now where he probably wants to get that second UI to get to the bottom of the deck as quickly as possible, and figuring out ways he can dump cards. That's like the highest mana cost card he could dump. But it's left him in this really tricky position. You can see he probably doesn't want to give up that swipe because he's going to need it for burst damage.
Yeah. And I think what we're probably going to see now as BloodTrail's plan becomes more and more obvious is when PNC does inevitably try and go for the Malagos into Floop line of play, we'll probably see a Demonic Project in response to the Malagos just to try and transform that Floop away so no extra burst damage can be done.
Absolutely. So the Starfall's going to come out now, and this, to your point, is probably where you'd rather be playing the Plague.
Yeah.
And I think one of the Spellstones? Yes, that's right. The Spellstone's coming out now as well. So it does clear the board, but BloodTrail's got that hero power online, which is obviously so valuable to him.
Yeah, and I'm not even saying this necessarily as a fault of PNC, but it feels like he just doesn't know what he wants to do with his mana. Like, does he want to dump really aggressively all of the cards from his hand and then draw through to the Malagos by playing UI? Does he want to take it slow? Does he want to go for board control? Does he want to go to damage through to face? I think he's having to figure out all these questions on the fly here because this is a pretty difficult board state to play.
I think the issue for PNC was some of these cards are required to hold for the combo.
Yeah.
Some of them I want to use on high-value minions like the Naturalizers. And as a result, it's just really awkward because I can't proactively play any minions. I can't proactively play these spells which I need. And that is a decent draw for BloodTrail in the Skulking Geist because it can get rid of the rest of the Spellstones and Naturalizers.
Playing MCT is not necessarily something I agree with from BloodTrail, from PNC, because maybe his thinking here is I have to get very lucky with this game. I just have to hope that my opponent doesn't have the Demonic Project when I go for my Malagos. However, by playing that mind control tech, it really feels like it's not going to do much here for me. Like, absolute best, it will be, trading into a Giant here, which was a pretty optimistic line that it would work out that way.
Especially because BloodTrail's Hero Power could have just killed the Mind Control Project. Like, there's a world where you just play Giant, you kill it with the Hero Power.
Exactly.
And you're in a really awkward spot. And now with PNC's hand, BloodTrail can all but guarantee the Demonic Project hits one of those combo pieces if he chooses to play it.
Because I think there's very few bad cards left to hit with the Demonic Project. If he hits Malagos, that's obviously the best result. Alexstrasza is fine, Floop is fine, Dream Petal Florist could be pretty good as well.
Yes, I think of the minions left still stuck in the deck, there'd be the Alex, there'd be the Dream Petal Florist.
Yeah.
I can never say it. It feels like a tongue twister to me. And those other two pieces, combo pieces, so all the minions left are great for a hit, really. And with the Florist going out of hand, that's one less that could be there. So I think PNC might just have to go on the aggressive here and just play out the Malagos.
I guess as good a turn as any. He really wants to have some kind of, again, any kind of minion to protect the other minions in his hand from the Demonic Project. As now we can clearly see Spellstone, Death Coil, and Hero Power would very cleanly take care of the Malagos, whilst also leaving mana spare for that Demonic Project to take out the Floop. It's just looking pretty fantastic here for BloodTrail.
That's an understatement.
I'll give you that. It's looking splendiferous.
Splendiferous.
Yes.
So with the way this turn will play out, right, BloodTrail is going to heal back to full and have 3 armor, so 33. If PNC's Malagos dies, but the Demonic Project doesn't come down, so he can play the Floop Ghost.
Yeah.
He still doesn't have enough damage in hand to get through 33, I don't believe.
Pretty much. It does just look to me like the card advantage is very much on BloodTrail's side. Sorry, I should say in terms of the deck that's left. As PNC here is holding back everything because he's thinking it has to survive here, but we can clearly see BloodTrail doesn't even need to bother with the Malagos line.
Don't even worry about it.
He can just close this game out and will be going up 2 games to 0. And PNC here, the fact that his Malagos Druid was left up isn't looking all too good for him so far. That was a pretty convincing victory for BloodTrail there.
Yeah, it was, and it's kind of hard to point at any single thing.
Giants is not something that's easy to deal with.
Alright, so we're going to start this off with the mirror between Shudderwock Shamans, and I don't know if there's much more to say about this than it's pretty much a race to get that combo online, and whoever hits that's usually the winner. It's very unlikely that a Keleseth or Hagatha game plan plays out for the victory here. It often comes down to that combo, and it can create for some really interesting games where they both miss, or the combos are going off one against the other, and there's something there is a lot of crazy stuff that can happen with this matchup, but I think we'll see both players very aggressively trying to hunt for that
Both
combo.
of them missing like that classic Gamer Sensei video about Nalkiran and was it Viper? And then
Yes, it
how
was
they
Viper,
played
yeah.
in the fatigue game when the Shudderwock win condition was off the table, but it's very hard to get to that point. So looks like both players are off to pretty decent starts with their Vision Shards. BloodTrail is the first to be putting a must-remove minion onto the board. Manatide Totem, if left up too long, can just create such a deficit for one player that just doesn't have the resources to outpace the other person's Shudderwock combo.
So PNC doesn't have the answer for the Manatide Totem, but has his own Manatide Totem. And we should see BloodTrail here pretty aggressively trying to get rid of that, but is saying that the Earthshock is too inconvenient, and just protecting it with Saronite feels a lot better. Plus it is one of those minions you need to develop for the combo.
An eye for an eye and a Manatide for a Manatide. I am pretty curious about not using the Earthshock there, but I guess the curve just didn't work out well enough for BloodTrail that he didn't want to waste the rest of the mana that way. As for PNC, he could try and rip a lucky Lightning Storm here. I don't think it's quite good enough, but every turn that Manatide stays up is such a disadvantage.
Okay, so BloodTrail here, looking at that Hex as a potential play this turn, which I would have thought doesn't feel right. The Farsight instead, of course, being that draw that cycle through, can Earth Shock through the Tar Creeper and then get rid of that Mana Totem finally. There's been far too much drawing this game, and can even follow it up with the Kelesith that he drew. But you see him hold onto it there, and that is, of course, a nod to the Mind Control tech.
Yes, and it kind of works out as well because he gets the Zola off the Manatide draw, so if he has enough board space next turn to not play into Mind Control Tech, he can go for a fancy Keleseth Zola play and change the win condition to just playing out ridiculously statted minions.
Absolutely. So PNC here now thinking through this one, and these turns have just felt awkward one after the other because there's multiple turns where you're looking at, hey, I could try and get lucky with this Lightning Storm, and with the Tar Creeper on the board, like, it removes some of the need for luck, but still not great. The Volcano just doesn't feel like a very productive play in this situation, because the unfortunate thing with all of these is you're giving tempo back to BloodTrail, but PNC decides he's going to hit the spell power totem.
He has the power.
He saw the line.
Just like in the old days when you have your Spirit Claws on one and your opponent plays a Trog and you just rip the spell totem.
And now the Kelesith is going to come down, and that Zola game plan could be pushed forward, but BloodTrail just very quickly getting the Acolyte of Pain down. And I do like this because it continues on with what we were talking about, which is you want to get your draw to find those combo pieces as quickly as possible. Yes, you could buff Kelesith a couple of times, and that gives you stronger tempo throughout the game. But if PNC still manages to get to the combo before you, then it doesn't really mean much.
That's true. I especially like this line of play, having drawn the Saronite in that turn. So now he saves the Zola for a Saronite as another tick on the Shudderwalk to possibly not whiff, which is definitely the priority here.
Especially because if you're sitting in BloodTrail's shoes, you feel far ahead in the game. You've played 2 Saronites to none at the moment. You've drawn 3 more cards than your opponent. And PNC appears to have had multiple awkward turns. So for BloodTrail, you'd be pretty happy with how this is going so far.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely too tempting to not play down the Saronite and Zola. Even if it gives you 4 minions, he realizes that any one of these as a single Mind Control tech target is not too threatening at all. And so PNC now, aside from just playing the MC tech this turn, he can play a Saronite of his own. I feel like Life Drinker does a better job of challenging the board though. But no matter what minions he plays, he's also playing into an empty tech from BloodTrail.
Yeah, BloodTrail has 2 in the deck, I believe, so this is definitely weighing on PNC's mind as he figures out what to do with the rest of the mana in this turn. I think...
In general, when you have the time to save the Saronite, I feel like it could be better just in case you pick up some kind of copying effect of your own. Want to maximize the possible ticks on that. Kind of like the Life Drinker.
Is the Life Drinker a bigger risk though into Mind Control tech? I mean, I feel like both of these plays have pretty significant downsides because obviously we're going to see the downside of going even wider, but Lightning Storm was also a much better answer where maybe Life Drinker is a little bit better against the Mind Control tech, but it still loses to a lot of the same things. I'm not really sure.
Trail ripping the Hagatha off the top, chooses to go for this. I would have liked to see him give a little consideration to maybe Lightning Storming there because it means he won't necessarily have to give up his whole board. But having Hagatha online now just gives him the most value for when he plays these next few minions coming up. And he's got enough hand space that he doesn't need to really worry about the interaction of Hagatha and Grumble and Shudderwalk, and it all gets kind of clunky at that point.
I don't know if he does have enough hand space. I think it might come down to how many more turns this game plays out, because that hand can fill up very quickly with junk that you just can't get rid of. And then you do fall into that trap of it being very awkward to play Shudderwalk because your hand's full of stuff that you don't want to be there. And on PNC's side, we can see that he's hit the Grumble, and with Shudderwalk in hand, that actually means he has a chance of getting the combo online. 1 Saronite's in the pool already, 1 Life Drink is in the pool. The thing for PNC though is, 1 Saronite only means you've just got a 50-50 chance. You want to build a better odds than 50-50 chance.
Yes. And he's not even played Zola, if I recall, so Zola's kind of like your failsafe. If the Grumble Saronite combo doesn't get off, at least you can put a 9-cost Shudderwalk in your hand and have another go at it. So I expect that PNC will not necessarily play Shudderwalk next turn and Grumble this turn. He has the time to wait, the way I see it, because you saw that BloodTrail went for Hagatha, and that's usually not a card you want to be dropping down when you have the whole combo in hand, because Hagatha can really clunk up your hand space. So I like that PNC is just going to... Well, you can, of course, play Grumble this turn and not Shudderwalk next turn, and getting rid of the Grumble now while it's expensive makes sense.
Yeah, it does come down to one of these things where do you want to play faster or do you want to try and hold it for more value? And I think PNC feels poorly enough about this position where the tempo and a riskier line is going to give him a better chance in trying to play greedy, and potentially then BloodTrail have the answers.
Speaking of greedy, the Spirit Echo gives BloodTrail another 2 Saronite procs. He's not going to suicide the other one just yet though, because I think that would create maybe a few more hand space issues, or if not, then the Grumble staying on board is quite threatening in and of itself.
Okay, this is a strong turn for PNC. The Electra Storm Surge combo with Farsight is just so powerful because there's tons of great minions he could hit to play this turn, and even if he missed on all those, the Hex there of course is very useful. But the thing for PNC now is, with so many Saronites in the pool for BloodTrail, he knows as soon as he sees Grumble, he has to do his own combo.
Yes.
Because the odds of BloodTrail whiffing are so low that he knows once Grumble comes down, if BloodTrail then has the chance to play Shudderwalk, he'll just lose because the combo is all but guaranteed. So he can now try and hold on for as long as possible to try and get the extra Saronites in the pool himself. But as soon as that Grumble comes down for BloodTrail, we'll see PNC go in on the Shudderwalk himself. And that would actually make me very surprised if PNC plays any Overload cards for the rest of the game.
Yeah, I definitely see your point there. He's also drawn into Zola now, which means he can get it into the pool and give himself a failsafe for the Shudderwalk. But he still doesn't necessarily have to Shudderwalk next turn. As you mentioned, his go signal essentially is his opponent BloodTrail's own Grumble being...
Did you call it a ghost signal?
Go signal.
Yeah, oh, go signal.
Yeah,
I think you said ghost signal.
Oh, wow.
I was like, oh, is this a new Batman thing that I don't know about?
That's a bad signal, right?
Yeah, well, bat signal. But so maybe Ghost is like his friend in fighting crime?
Sure, you can see it. But Shudderwalk is now in the hand for BloodTrail. Of course, hasn't played his own Grumble yet, so it's not necessarily going to come down.
And one thing to note is BloodTrail can't just play the Shudderwalk and build a wide enough board and expect that'll win, because with the Mind Control techs, the Glacial Shards, etc. that PNC has in his pool, the Shudderwalk would then be a sufficient answer regardless.
PNC is just going to go for it now with the assurance that, wow, Zola might have been able to help there, but that is the worst possible outcome for PNC. That the Zola and the Grumble go off before the Saronite, which is really unfortunate.
Really confusing to me. He didn't need to play the Shudderwalk that turn. He could have waited one more.
But 2 and 3 times you at least get either a 9-cost Shudderwalk or a 1-cost Shudderwalk.
Yeah, but you can wait and give yourself better odds. It's not about whether or not these are good odds, it's whether or not you can get better odds.
Well, I guess what you were saying about the overload also played into his mind. Yeah, this is just really sad now, because BloodTrail was threatening his own kind of pretty threatening board with like 3-4 attack minions, I think, which demanded a Volcano to answer. But the second PNC overloads, then he doesn't have the mana to play his own Shudderwalk in response to Grumble from BloodTrail. So I think he felt the need to go for it that turn.
He could have taken face damage from the minions one more turn. Now BloodTrail does have overload on his mana, so can't play his Shudderwalk himself. And the only thing going for PNC is the Shudderwalk has, I think, like a 1 in 7 chance or 1 in 6 chance of failing still. No, it's... Yes, yeah, that's right. 1 in 6. So it can happen.
Pretty unfortunate there, but yeah, PNC's only hope to stay in this game and in the series is for BloodTrail's own Shudderwalk to whiff. It's not likely, but we don't know PNC to be a quitter. He's not going to give up when the chances aren't 0.
So one thing to consider is if it does whiff, want to hold on to the double volcano because BloodTrail's going to have a full board of 7/7s. Although if he has a full board of 7/7s, double volcano still isn't sufficient. But with a lightning storm top deck, it would have been.
So that is just it, right?
Yep, that's it. Guaranteed from them.
PNC, totally see it on his face, as you said, a very emotive player, but who wouldn't feel bad about going down this way with quite an unfortunate order of the Sarah Knights and the Zola. So BloodTrail is going to go up 3-0 and join our pool of players who are now 4-0 in Swiss, although PNC still has a good chance to make it with a 3-1 score.
Yeah, I think 3-1 is definitely possible. If you end the day on 5-1, then you should be making it through to top 16. I think guaranteed. There's 2 players on 4-2 that will be able to get through, and that's where tiebreakers are really going to come in hand. So dropping 1 at this point, look, it doesn't feel great, but are you still in the running to win the whole thing? Absolutely.
Yeah, the thing about Swiss is that you really need to just keep your chin up no matter the result, because there's always a chance that you can maybe make it through on the next round and the next round. In maybe other tournament formats like double elimination, you get really disheartened if you drop super early, because then you suddenly have to play more games